From claiming she was Eminem's daughter.
You have told people Eminem's your father.
Yeah. There's this picture of me when I was little. It's on my Facebook.
To believing she's carrying the second coming of Christ.
There is no what if. I am pregnant.
And it is Jesus.
This is the story of Haley, a young woman whose delusions spiraled so far out of control that her own family couldn't tell if she needed help or was pulling off the greatest act of all time. When Haley first appeared on Dr. Phil's show, viewers had no idea they were about to witness one of the most bizarre and unsettling cases in the show's history. What started as outrageous celebrity paternity claims quickly transformed into religious delusions so intense that her family feared for everyone's safety. But to understand how Haley ended up believing she was 9 months pregnant with baby Jesus, we need to go back to where the delusion started, with a certain blonde rapper from Detroit. Before Jesus came into the picture, Haley had already convinced herself that one of the world's most famous rappers was her biological father. Haley's journey into delusion started with something far more common among young people seeking identity and attention, a celebrity paternity claim that seemed ridiculous from the moment she said it out loud. When Dr. Phil asked her directly if she had told people that Eminem was her father, Haley didn't hesitate. She confirmed it with complete confidence, as if this wasn't an absolutely wild thing to claim. In her mind, this was proof positive that the real Slim Shady was her dad. But here's where things got awkward.
You have told people Eminem's your father.
Yeah. There's this picture of me when I was little. It's on my Facebook.
When pressed about these mysterious photos, the truth started to crumble. The man in the picture wasn't Eminem at all. It was actually a family member. Haley had somehow convinced herself that a relative who vaguely resembled the rapper was actually the famous musician himself. Dr. Phil showed her actual photos of Eminem's real daughter, Haley Mathers. The young woman stared at the pictures and claimed they looked just like her baby photos. She pointed out similarities in hairstyles and features, completely missing the obvious fact that she was looking at a completely different human being. The logic got even more twisted when Dr. Phil asked her to think through what she was actually claiming. Was she suggesting that Eminem had 2 daughters, both named Haley? Her response revealed the depths of her confusion. Haley tried to support her claims by mentioning photos she had found in her mother's closet. She talked about a notebook collection her mom kept hidden away, filled with pictures of a man. In Haley's mind, these photos were smoking gun evidence of her mother's secret relationship with a Detroit rapper. When Dr. Phil asked her to step back and think about whether any of this made common sense, Haley threw out another theory. This explanation didn't even match her original claim, but it showed how desperately she was grasping for any explanation that would make her fantasy real. The Eminem delusion revealed something troubling about Haley's relationship with reality. She genuinely believed these things, even when presented with clear evidence to the contrary. But Haley's delusions were just getting started. Her next claim would make the Eminem story look almost reasonable by comparison. After the Eminem episode, Haley's family hoped that being confronted with reality on national television might snap her out of these fantasies. Instead, her delusions evolved into something far more extreme and religiously charged. Haley began telling everyone who would listen that she was pregnant with baby Jesus himself. Her family was devastated and confused. Her mother had already taken her for multiple pregnancy tests, all of which came back negative. 2 home pregnancy tests showed no pregnancy. A clinic visit with a full pelvic exam found nothing. The health department ran their own test, and it too came back negative. 4 negative urine tests from medical professionals should have settled the matter, but Haley refused to accept the results. She had an explanation for why all the tests were wrong. She claimed she had a rare blood type that made urine tests unreliable. The physical evidence Haley pointed to seemed convincing, at least to her. She claimed she had gained 22 pounds. Her stomach had visibly swelled, and she could feel movement inside. One night her baby punched the bottom of her stomach and kicked her awake. She could feel the baby's head positioned right below her belly button. From Haley's perspective, her pregnancy was undeniably real. She could see it, feel it, and experience it every single day. The fact that medical tests contradicted her experience only made her more certain that something was being covered up or denied. But the most troubling aspect of her delusion was her absolute certainty about who the father was. This was Jesus Christ himself, and the world was about to witness a miracle. Haley spoke about her pregnancy with religious fervor. She told anyone who would listen that whether they believed her came down to whether they were a true believer in Jesus. If you denied her pregnancy, you were essentially denying Christ himself. She didn't care if her family disowned her over this. She didn't care if friends stopped talking to her. She didn't care what pregnancy tests or doctors said. When she gave birth to her baby, no one would be able to deny him because he was the savior. As Haley's due date approached, her family found themselves walking on eggshells, terrified of what might happen when reality finally crashed into her delusion. Living with Haley during her supposed pregnancy became increasingly difficult for her entire family. The tension in the household was so thick you could cut it with a knife, and even the smallest things would trigger massive arguments. Her mother described Haley as a compulsive liar who lived in her own fantasy world. This wasn't the first time Haley had told outrageous lies. She had previously claimed to have donated a kidney to her half-brother. She told people she had been a contestant on American Idol. The M&M paternity claim was just one in a long line of fabricated stories. But the pregnancy delusion was different. Haley genuinely seemed to believe it, and her belief was causing real chaos in her home. Her sister Adriana was at her wits' end. She flat out called Haley crazy and delusional. The sisters got into physical altercations, with both claiming the other had started the fights. Adriana even started recording Haley during her outbursts, documenting the increasingly erratic behavior. One particularly nasty fight broke out in a hotel room. According to Adriana, Haley started talking about how everyone was saying things about her in their heads, which was making her crazy. The argument escalated to the point where their mother had to jump between them. Haley pushed her mother back, claiming she was just trying to keep her mom from getting caught in the middle. These were violent, frightening confrontations that left everyone in the family on edge. They never knew what would set Haley off or how she might react. Despite the chaos, Haley's family found themselves in an impossible position. They couldn't keep living like this, but they also couldn't just throw her out. Her mother admitted that to avoid conflict, they had started treating Haley like she was actually pregnant, even though they all knew she wasn't. The family hoped Dr. Phil could help them figure out whether Haley was putting on an elaborate act for attention or if she genuinely needed serious psychological help. The question was about whether Haley was losing touch with reality in a way that made her dangerous to herself and others. When Haley agreed on an ultrasound on the doctors, everyone thought the undeniable visual evidence would finally break through her delusion. But they were about to discover just how painful a false belief can be. Dr. Phil arranged for Haley to get an ultrasound on the set of The Doctors, a show with fully equipped examination rooms and medical equipment. This was going to be visual proof that everyone, including Haley, could see with their own eyes. Haley lay there expecting to see her son on the screen. She waited to hear the technician point out the baby's head, the tiny hands, the beating heart. She believed this moment would vindicate her, proving to everyone that she had been right all along. But that's not what happened. Dr. Travis Stork, the host of The Doctors and an emergency room physician, walked Dr. Phil through the results. He explained that the most notable thing about the ultrasound wasn't what they could see, it was what they couldn't see. The ultrasound showed Haley's abdomen and pelvis, scanning across every possible area where a baby would be visible. The machine looked everywhere a 9-month pregnancy could possibly hide, and there was absolutely nothing there. Dr. Stork showed a comparison image. On one side was Haley's ultrasound showing her empty abdomen. On the other side was what an ultrasound actually looks like at 8.5 months pregnant. The difference was undeniable. In a real pregnancy at that stage, you could clearly see the baby's head, the body, the fully developed fetus. In Haley's ultrasound, there was nothing but organs and tissue. The only thing the ultrasonographer noted was that Haley had dilated loops of bowel. As the probe pressed against her stomach, these loops of bowel moved around, which might have felt like movement to Haley. This could explain why she believed she felt the baby kicking and moving inside her. Dr. Stork emphasized that Haley claimed to be just 9 days from delivery. At that stage, a baby would be full term and completely visible on ultrasound. There was no way she was pregnant, let alone about to give birth. But even faced with medical proof, Haley didn't accept it. She'd built her entire identity around this pregnancy for months. Accepting it wasn't real meant accepting she'd been fundamentally wrong about who she was. The ultrasound should have ended it, but Haley's journey back to reality was far more complicated than anyone expected. After her appearance on Dr. Phil's show, Haley went straight to Creative Care, a treatment facility that could provide the intense help she needed. Her family hoped professional treatment and medication would finally bring her back to reality. But recovery started rough. For the first 2 weeks, Haley refused her medications. Why? She still believed she was pregnant. She couldn't risk taking drugs that might harm the baby she was convinced she was carrying. Then something changed. One night, Haley woke up convinced she was having contractions. The moment had finally arrived. She would give birth to baby Jesus and prove everyone wrong. She looked down at her stomach. What she saw shocked her. Her abdomen had gone completely flat. The swelling that had convinced her she was pregnant had vanished overnight. She waited a few days, watching as her stomach continued to get smaller and smaller. Then she started bleeding, and her mind immediately jumped to one conclusion: she had suffered a miscarriage. But even in her grief, something didn't make sense. She had bled, but nothing else had come out. No baby, no tissue, nothing that would indicate she had actually miscarried a full-term pregnancy. A baby should have come out, but it didn't. This cognitive dissonance finally forced Haley to confront what everyone had been trying to tell her for months. She had never been pregnant. The swelling in her stomach was caused by a large amount of gas lodged in her digestive system, not a growing baby. The realization made her finally accept the medication her doctors at Creative Care had been trying to give her. Once she became compliant with her treatment, the staff could see immediate improvement. The medications were helping her think more clearly and rationally. Her doctors were supportive throughout the process, helping her work through her resistance to the medication. They understood that for Haley, accepting treatment meant accepting that her pregnancy had been a delusion, which was an incredibly painful realization. When Haley's family was notified that she was coming home after treatment, her mother's reaction was complicated. She was upset and shocked. She didn't think Haley was ready to come home yet and had made it clear that Haley needed to make other arrangements, possibly at a shelter. But ultimately, Haley's mother had to bring her daughter back home. It was disappointing and upsetting because the family feared they were heading right back into the same dangerous patterns.
I made it clear that Haley could not come home, that she needed to call around to some shelters. I ended up having to bring her back home, and it was very disappointing and upsetting.
Those fears turned out to be justified. Haley had been home for almost 2 months when her family reached out to Dr. Phil again. Her irrational thinking was becoming more prominent. She was returning to her old ways. The family described the situation as a ticking time bomb. Haley had lashed out at her little brother. She had hit the family dog. The violent, erratic behavior that had terrified them before her treatment was coming back. Even after accepting she wasn't pregnant, Haley couldn't let go of the delusion that had defined her life for so long. When Haley returned to Dr. Phil's show for a follow-up, she was in a very different place mentally than her first appearance. She admitted her schizophrenia had gotten worse, not better, since the last time they spoke. Dr. Phil asked her directly about the pregnancy. Did she still believe she had been carrying a child? Haley's answer showed she had made progress, but the delusion still had hooks in her mind.
Why do you think you thought you were pregnant?
Because I've never been pregnant before, and my stomach had swelled up to a very large amount, and I've never had it swollen up like that before.
She admitted she hadn't been pregnant. She acknowledged that the ultrasound had been real and that she probably should have listened to Dr. Stork when he showed her the evidence. She even felt bad about telling him to shove it when he tried to help her see the truth. But here's where things got complicated. Even though Haley intellectually accepted that she hadn't been pregnant, she emotionally couldn't let go of the belief that she had lost something real. But the delusion still talked to her, filling her with depression and sadness. She had believed this was her miracle baby, and letting go of that belief felt like a genuine loss. This is one of the most heartbreaking aspects of Haley's story. The delusion had felt so real to her that accepting the truth didn't make the emotions go away. She mourned a pregnancy that never existed and grieved for a baby that was never real. Her continued need for medication became clear. The schizophrenia that drove her delusions required ongoing treatment, medication compliance, and professional support. In the end, Haley's story serves as a reminder that mental illness doesn't always look like what we expect, and the human mind's capacity for self-deception can be both powerful and heartbreaking. Haley's journey from claiming Eminem as her father to believing she was pregnant with baby Jesus might seem like the plot of a dark comedy, but strip away the absurdity of the specific claims, and what remains is a tragic story of a young woman battling a serious mental illness while her family struggled to keep everyone safe. The fact that she eventually accepted that she wasn't pregnant shows that treatment can work. Medication and professional help did reach her, even if the process was slow and painful. Her ability to look back and recognize that she should have listened to the doctors represents real progress. But her continued feelings of loss over a pregnancy that never existed reveal how deeply these delusions can affect someone's emotional reality. You can't just flip a switch and make the false beliefs disappear along with all the feelings attached to them. The grief was real, even if the pregnancy wasn't. Haley's family remains caught in a difficult situation, hoping the medication continues to work while preparing for the possibility that her irrational thinking might return. They've learned that loving someone with schizophrenia means accepting that the person you know might sometimes be unreachable, trapped behind delusions they can't control. For Haley, the challenge now is staying compliant with medication and treatment while dealing with a brain that still sometimes tells her things that aren't true. She has to constantly question her own perceptions, never fully trusting whether what she's experiencing is real or another delusion. Whether you found her story shocking, sad, or somewhere in between, Haley's case shows us the devastating impact of untreated mental illness and the long, difficult road to recovery. Her appearances on Dr.Phil were a window into the frightening reality of schizophrenia and the families trying to cope with its effects. The question that haunted her family from the beginning, was she acting or did she really need help, was finally answered. She really needed help. She still needs help. And her story continues, one day and one dose of medication at a time, as she tries to rebuild a relationship with reality that her own brain keeps trying to destroy.